give it a test.
Okay.
Okay, give it a test.
Yeah, okay.
1 second, hold on. Okay.
Okay, right. Hi, greetings to you from Netanya. I'm so sorry not to be with you at this great Maccabean reunion, especially since my association began with Maccabi way back in 1946. One Tuesday evening, Willie Malkinson, A. Baker, who unfortunately passed away a couple of months ago here in Netanya, and myself decided to take a bus up to what was then Carlisle Sports Club. And it was in Terranure at the bottom of Parkmore Drive, which was alongside what was then the Green Lanes, but now many of you will know it as Greenley Road. When we got in there, we were met by a very amiable looking man who turned out to be Davy Solomons. And he said, "Hello boys, would you like to play cricket?" And we said, "Oh yes, please," as one did in those days. And he brought us up to the nets, and there were about 8 or 9 guys practicing there. And amongst them were Willie Samuels and Jack Roberts. And they, along with Davy Solomons, they were the mainstay of Carlisle cricket. And they were really responsible for getting Carlisle into the Premier Division of the Leinster Senior League, which was, I think, around about 1978, in around that time. And just after that, the league agreed to allow each club to have a professional player for the summer. We were fortunate to get a guy named Julian Wiener, a Jewish guy actually, coincidentally, and he was an Australian. He played for Victoria in the Sheffield League there, the Australian main league. Later on, he actually played for Australia, and he scored 100, I think, against Pakistan. So he was instrumental in training many of our younger players, like Mark Cohen and the Mullins boys, and he really imbued tremendous spirit into the club. And I think one year we actually won the league, the Premier League. Now, in Parkmore Drive as it was then, there was by the way, it wasn't called Maccabi, it was called Carlisle then, and there was only a rugby club and a tennis club. But then, around about 1950, Louis Verby decided to start a soccer club. And along with the Robinson boys, with Rafi, Stanley and Jaime, and I remember Norman Grusden was the legal advisor to the club, and a number of other guys. Anyway, they started a soccer club and they played in the Sunday Alliance. And then when Carlisle moved to Kimmage in 1954, that coincided with the time that the Amateur League started. They started then in 1950. We were one of the founders of the Amateur League. And I was delighted to see a video there just a couple of weeks ago of the time that we actually won the cup and of our division, and we also won the league as well. That was 1984. And I remember the Cohen boys, Curry Cohen and Mark, and Richard Green, and the Berber boys, and Stevie Alkin, just to mention a few that I can remember. And of course we had a very successful run then for a number of years. We also had a rugby club, Carlisle Rugby Club, and I've heard through the grapevine that George Hook is supposed to be there this evening. Regards to George, he may remember me as the bane of his life, because I was the groundsman in charge of the grounds there, and sometimes on a wet day in November or December, I would call off a rugby match. Now the reason I did this was because the rugby and soccer were part of the main cricket pitch, and my main responsibility was, of course, to the cricket, because it was very important to get a decent wicket there. We actually held an international there, and against Wales, a 3-day match against Wales. So that was one of my great achievements in Maccabi. But we also then, of course, we had a very successful tennis section, and we also had, well, earlier on, we had a table tennis section, I remember, and we actually had 2 Irish internationals playing then, Hubert Wine and Mick Collins. So we acquitted ourselves reasonably well throughout that time. Just getting back to George Hook for a second, I just want to tell him that here in Israel, in Netanya, we watch his drive time every evening at 4:30, and we love the show. Just to let George know that. Keep up the good work, George. There's not much more to say. I do hope to be there later on in the week. Unfortunately, things didn't work out for us at the beginnings of this meeting, but I'd like to wish you all the very best and hope to see some of you later on in the week. Bye-bye for now. Okay.